Hello, you magnificent human being. So, Merry Christmas! I'm here today with another devlog update for Cytopolis. So, if you didn't catch up from my previous blogs, Cytopolis is a biology game that is focused on teaching how a cell works through some sort of city management gameplay. The game is supposed to be online, and I'm currently developing a prototype for it. So I am Johan De Bruin. I was a former software engineer at Riot Games, but 6 months ago I decided to quit and do full-time in the development to create educational games. So in the last week, we focused on creating gameplay improvements. So one thing I've noticed from the prototype is that you basically place the organelles in a linear way. So you place the mitochondria so you can generate ATP, and then you place the membrane receptors so you can generate the resources to place a nucleus, and then you place another thing. All really linear without really a real path to choose different optimizations. So I decided to add two new features. One of them is the ability to level up the organelles. I've been reading an article about the progression or the math behind idle games, and that's one of the main ideas, right? That you are able not only to create generators, but to also level up generators, which means now the player can choose. He wants to place a new one or he wants to level up the current ones. The second thing, and it's probably the most important feature we added, was finally some sort of multiplayer feature that will convert this game or add a certain mechanic to this game to add some economic system, right? And specifically, you have the ability to create these endoplasmic reticulum organelles that gives you bacteriophage that you can use to attack other players and steal their resources. On the contrary, a player might choose to generate plastid organelles that will increase their defense. I will go through those features after. Now, I want to pause and I want to talk about creating online games, because I think it's a topic that a lot of YouTubers don't really talk about. So I've been doing an analysis, and there is like two main ways to create online games, right? Or multiplayer games. One time is real-time multipliers, and this is the traditional online games like shooters or real-time strategy that involves having a game server, and also the players connect to the game server as well to the other players to communicate in real time. This involves using normally the game engine physics for verification, server-side verification, and some sort of networking library like Phaser. This is a complex way to create multiplayer games, which I'm not very familiar with, and has the opposite way. You can just create kind of like a synchronous multiplayer where the player does really connect to a server, perform certain actions and change the state of the game. Then another player might connect and also perform another action and as well change the state of the game. So it's really like player to server communication without that, real-time fanciness, which means you can create a simple HTTP-based server and do basic HTTP requests and have like a traditional, web stack without your database server and just hit certain endpoints. I tried that, and it's actually more work than one could anticipate, right? So I've been exploring different solutions, and I decided that there were like 3 different services I could use to avoid having that work. These are called backend as a service, and I analyzed 3 or 4 actually. 4 actually, yes. The first one, and probably the closest one to the backend server, is using Lambda functions to handle the backend logic. So you still have endpoints through some sort of RESTful API service, like API gateway in AWS, and you hook them up to small functions that AWS can also handle. The other solution, I found out that I had to handle a lot of things like authentication and handling like specific endpoints and handling how Unity game engine or whatever client you use connects to these endpoints. And I didn't want to do all that job. So I looked into the next step, which was some sort of backend as a service that provides an SDK for Unity game engine, right? An SDK means that they're going to handle the connection and all that jazz. So I looked at Firebase, and they handle a lot more. In this case, with Firebase, the model is you connect directly to the database. So the client connects to the database, and they are filtered by some sort of rules. So they cannot just do whatever they want. And then you also have a server engine that also connects to the database. And it's kind of like a reactionary observer patterns all over the way, where a player requests creating a new game, and then the server generates the new game, and the client receives a notification that the game is created, blah, 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 blah. Now, this was okay, but there was a few more things I had to handle, like in-app purchases or really economy of the game. Those things, I will need to set them up by myself, which I didn't really want to. It's when I found out the next tier of backend as a service that are closer to game engines, and that was Microsoft's Playfab and Amazon's GameSparks. Now, GameSparks looks really fancy, but after some analysis I found out that the project was kinda abandoned. I think AWS is trying to go to a new direction. And the SDK for Unity wasn't being updated for a while. So I decided to go with Microsoft Playfab. Now, I'm going to show you how I used Microsoft Playfab to integrate this new feature bidding system into the game. But if you want an in-depth tutorial about how to do online games with Playfab, please comment below. And you know, if I see there is interest, I will create the tutorial. So yeah, just let me know what would you like to see in the tutorial, and I'm for sure will create it. Now, so what's next after this week? So I'm gonna take some vacation. Yeah, I'm gonna take 2 weeks Christmas vacation. Merry Christmas, by the way. And I'm going to, after that, I'm going to focus on fixing some bugs on Cytopolis and releasing the actual game into itch.io. So that's gonna be my next week. If you have some suggestions of if I have a feature or a bug I should introduce, as always, comment below, and I would love to get some feedback from you. Thank you. All right, let's go and see the new updates. All right, so let's see. This is the game. Now I'm gonna click on my character that I created before, and you'll see that we have this cell completely covered up with organelles. So these are the new, then the plasmic reticulum and the plastid are the new two organelles that we introduced. The plastid does not have the ability to really level up or to equip enzymes, and the only thing that does the moment you have equipped is increase your defense capacity against attacking players. In the other hand, we also have these endoplasmic reticulums that generates this bacteriophage that we will be using to attack other players. Lastly, the new gameplay feature that I introduced was the ability to level up these organelles. So, for example, in this case, this mitochondria is generating 30 ATP. Now I might use some ATP to level it up, and once I re-equip the enzyme, you'll see that now it's generating 40 ATP every 10 seconds, which means now I can choose in between placing organelles or leveling them up. In this case, I decided to place everything I could place in this cell just because I wanted to see how a fully equipped cell would look like, and that's how it looks like. We also introduced like all the new organelles sprites animations, so you can see now that we have the ribosomes working, the nucleus working, plastids and endoplasmic reticulums, everything like generating and being fancy. The other feature we added is these still items, which when you click it you don't see anything because currently in the server there is only one player. Alright, so let's talk about what we have done with the online feature. So the first problem I had to tackle is the ability for the server to detect all the players or expose every player that has created cells. Cells are characters, and each player might create multiple characters. So I use this feature named Groups from Playfab that is meant to be used as clans or social features. In this case, I've created it as clusters. So currently the game will only have one cluster, and every time a new player creates a new cell, he's going to create a new cluster here. So yeah, in this case, this cluster only has one cell, so the only cell that I just showed you. What I'm going to do, I'm going to change this variable that represents the player that connects. I'm gonna name it, before I was logging it as Johan, now I'm gonna log in as Johan1, which means when I play the game, I'm not gonna have any new cells. And I'm gonna basically force to create a new one. So I'm gonna click on create a new one, and now I've just generated a new cell, which means now I hit that endpoint to create a new cell. And when I hit that endpoint, I basically create a character for the player, and I register the character into this group. Now you can see we have two characters, yay. All right, now also if I click still items, I can see the other character here. Of course, I do not have any bacteriophage, but I can see all the resources that he has. So I'm gonna create a few organelles for this character. I don't have like ATP restrictions right now for testing purposes, so I can have negative ATP. So I decided to create two plastids, one mitochondria. And to be honest, I'm not gonna use any of these things. I'm just showing you how a basic gameplay will look like by equipping some ATP and be able to generate some mitochondria. Then I'm gonna get some immune receptors. Anyway, I'm gonna add some carbon to this player. Oops, I meant to show you that, sorry for that. All right, so I'm gonna add some carbon to this player. Yeah, so I need to find the player I just created, which I think is this one, hopefully. Johan1, yes, that's the one. Yeah, Johan1. So this is the new player. I'm gonna check out his character. I can see Johan character 2. Great. I'm gonna add an inventory, and I'm gonna add carbon to this guy. I'm gonna give him a couple of carbons. All right, so now I have something to steal. I'm gonna stop playing with this player, and I'm gonna re-log in with the previous one, which is Johan. I'm gonna hit play, and I'll see my previous Johan character 1 with all my fanciness, and this guy has some attacking power. This is the character we just created, and this is the carbon I can steal. Now, the way this works is, first of all, you need to use as many bacteriophage as plastid the other player has. So, because he had 2 plastid, you need to use at least 4 bacteriophages. Now, the more bacteriophage you use, the more success chance you have. Which means, you know, the more plastid, the less likely a player will attack you, because the more resources you'll have to use. In this case, I'm gonna use 9 bacteriophage, because that will give me 100% success chance. And when you steal, you normally will get like 50% of his resources. So in this case, I got his carbon, which you can see here, 1 carbon. And yeah, that's the new feature. Now, it's not very interesting now, because this player already has everything he needs. But in the future, you know, a player that is brand new, he will normally have 1 or 2 membrane receptors. And if you want to create amino acids, you need 1 of each one of the resources. So it's way cheaper to create an endoplasmic reticulum and steal some of those nutrients from another player than try to generate them. So yeah, with that, now you might decide to like level up a lot, one certain organelle, and be a super producer of one type of resource, place a lot of different organelles and produce a little bit of everything, or being a super aggressive player and just steal resources from other players. which is, a nice way to give the player agency, and that was the main objective of the game. And I think now the game is kind of ready for release. I just need to fix a few bugs and fix that authentication system, so the player doesn't have to change the source code to log in. All right, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Have a Merry Christmas.